Hey y'all, Uncle Todd here with Atomic Athlete. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about something near and dear to my heart, which is injury prevention. And I'm almost 50. I've been training, doing Atomic for 16 years, as long as it's been around. Jake and I used to fuck around in a park before that, and jiu-jitsu, Olympic lifting, powerlifting, I've done it all. And my body has taken the toll. And I have the wear and tear in my body. And I was always famous for always training through injuries. And those injuries would get worse and worse and worse. And eventually, a little chink in the armor turns into a crack, and a crack turns into a break. And then I would be hurt for an extended period of time. And we've talked about training hurt, and there's ways to train out an injury. But the big thing that we haven't really talked about before is stopping the injury before it becomes catastrophic. And this is probably the single biggest thing that it took me a long time to learn is like, oh, I can squat through the pain, or I can lunge through the pain, or I can run through the pain. And maybe you can, but each one of those impacts or movements is making that injury just a little bit worse until eventually you're going to be all fucked up. And I've done it myself many, many times. And then I will say the past couple years, I've been remarkably uninjured. And the reason I've been so lucky is what we'll call it, is I kind of changed the parameters on how I approach my training. And I was able to do this because I was at a random party one day and I was talking to a dude, and he did jiu-jitsu at a place I'd previously trained at. He was a plumber now. We consider plumbers, firefighters, anybody that uses their body for the work. We call those guys industrial athletes because if they get hurt, they can't work. They can't feed their families, right? So it's really important that they stay uninjured. And he had been hurt in jiu-jitsu enough that he had missed a decent amount of work. And so he had started basically this protocol, we call it prehab or whatever you want to call it, but basically it's just a mindset of what he would do before he went into training and how he approached that training. So I'm just going to go over that stuff with you. The very first thing as soon as he would wake up, as he'd get ready for training, he would foam roll his entire body. He'd do a couple passes on his back, his arms, his legs. He's not doing this to get warm. He's doing this to basically build a relationship with his body, because your body's always talking to you, right? So as he would work through his back, his legs, his arms, if he felt a tweak or his knee felt weird or his back felt weird or his neck felt weird, he wouldn't do anything about it. He wouldn't do anything extra about it. He would just take note of that thing, all right? So I got this little thing going on. Then, as he went into training, he would always do a thorough warm-up before jiu-jitsu, because if you've done any jiu-jitsu, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you go in and you do all this weird shit on the ground. Sometimes you go right to grip fighting. You just never know. So he would always do just a decent warm-up. So he knew that no matter what, he took care of himself. He wasn't putting that on somebody else. So then he'd come in, and then as he was training, if he started to feel something weird, so let's just say he felt a little something weird in his shoulders on his soft tissue work, and he's doing some shrimping, he's doing some training, and that shoulder starts to turn from a little nick into like a throb. In that situation, he'd rest a little bit, try to come back. If it stayed the same or got worse, he would just call it right there. He would actually go home right there. He'd watch the rest of class, but he was done training for that day. And he said that was really hard on his ego when he really first started. He really thought that everybody thinks I'm a pussy because I'm not training, I'm weak, I'm fit, whatever. But he's like, you know what happened is I might have to take the next day off, but the day after that I was able to get right back to training. And anybody that's had a major injury in jiu-jitsu or even lifting knows that coming back within 2 or 3 days, this just never really happens. Usually out for days, weeks, sometimes even months. So the simple fact that he was able to take a few days off on the front hand, or maybe even just a day off on the front hand to get more training into the back end, was really just, it's like a mind-blowing movement. Because the biggest indicator of injury is a pre-existing injury. So most of us felt the thing. You felt the thing before the thing happened. You can say like, oh, this is what hurt me, but it was a whole bunch of things in front of that. So as you are identifying the things that cause you pain or make that injury worse, and you start removing those things or modifying those things, it keeps you significantly healthier longer. And that is just like, while that's so simple, our ego just doesn't want us to happen. So if we see, an 8x3 back squat at 85% and you're working up and at like 65% your back starts to tighten up and you're like, oh no, fuck it, the program says 85%, I got to do 85%. Like, is that smart training? Because like, keep in mind, y'all, there is nothing you can do in the gym that's going to make you a better athlete if you get hurt and you can't train tomorrow. The number one priority in any training is training tomorrow. As I've aged, that is how I wrap all of my training. If what I do right now is keeping me from training tomorrow, this is not smart. Because if I can't train tomorrow, it might be the last time I ever do this activity. And that is like, for me, as I've aged, I'm almost 50 now, that is how I frame everything. Even the last few big injuries I've had, one time I felt a little crunch thing in my back and I was like, oh, I'll be all right, I'll work through it. It turned into a much louder crunch. That was a couple years ago. I can still kind of feel that thing. You know, it's just these things that are just like, that kept me out for months and months and months. And it's just like, as you identify these things and you're like, oh, that felt weird. It's your body's talking to you. It's telling you, hey man, do something else. And the great thing about the gym is there's so many alternative activities you can do. There's just so many things you can do. Now, for jiu-jitsu specific, this same guy had another great piece of advice. He's like, if I am rolling with a guy and he gets me in a submission and I don't know the perfect escape, I immediately tap. I don't try to figure it out. I immediately tap. And then I have him hold that position or get me back in that position, and we gameplay or role play, or if he knows the escape, he talks me through the escape, and then I work the escape with just a little bit of resistance so I can kind of pattern what that movement looks like. So the next time I get in that position, I know I'm not going to put myself in jeopardy. I know I have a clear, identifiable escape to get through. But either way, guys, it does not matter what activity you're doing. There's nothing you're doing today that is going to make you a better athlete if you're getting hurt and you can't train tomorrow. There's nothing in the gym, there's no single rep, no single exercise, no single day that's going to make you as an athlete. But anything, a single rep can break you as an athlete, and it can hurt you for years and years later. So understand, the only thing that matters is training tomorrow. So adjust your training appropriately. View your workouts for what they are. They are actual workouts. Exercises are just a means to an end. They can always be substituted with something else. This is what's going to keep you consistent, and the only thing that determines a great athlete is consistency. So on that note, I'll see you guys tomorrow.